What's up, guys? Mr. Roland here, and welcome to Art Design. Today we're going to be drawing Grogu from The Mandalorian, or as I like to call him, Baby Yoda. And we're going to be doing the Funko Pop version of Grogu. So get a piece of paper, a pencil, and let me show you exactly what we're drawing here. So go ahead, take a screenshot of this because you want to be able to reference it as you're looking at my drawing screen as well. You don't want to just do one or the other. You want to be able to go back and forth. So I'll give you a second to do that. Okay. And I like the Funko Pop versions because it simplifies everything and it takes a little bit of the detail out, and it's a good way to start on a character. All right, so we have our paper, and first things first, you want to turn it sideways. You want it in landscape orientation. I know we're doing a portrait, but because Grogu's ears are so wide, it takes up the majority of this page. So we're going to be side to side, not in portrait orientation. And the first mark that we're going to make is we're going to make a straight line that divides the page in half right here. So you can see I already have one lightly in. All I did was I measured right to the middle, or you could eyeball it, and I just lightly put a line in. And we're doing that because we want to center our character off of that section. Okay? And the next thing that we're going to want to do is we want to kind of map out where we want to stop and start for the character, because we don't want to run off the page, or we don't want it to be too tiny. So let's go ahead, and I'd say maybe about two finger width from the bottom. I'm going to put a little line here as a marker because that's where I want the feet to be, or the bottom of Grogu's outfit. And then the same, maybe about 2 fingers, maybe an inch from the top, I want to put a little line showing that that's where the top of the head's going to go. And then we're going to, these ears are really big, so let's put the ears all the way off to the side over here. So we don't want to go maybe an inch from the side here and maybe an inch from the side here. So we've just put in these guidelines. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to block in the main shapes of Grogu. And when I look at Grogu, I mostly see 2 triangles, an oval, and a square or a rectangle. And you're like, well, how do you see that? Well, let's take a second and draw it in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lightly sketch in the oval for the head. And these are kind of really just sketch lines. You see, I'm not pressing hard on the pencil. And the head of Grogu is almost the same size as the body, maybe just slightly smaller. And it's not 100% an oval, it's just about. And that's why I'm doing these very light and just kind of sketchy. These are not clean lines yet. We're going to come back. Detail comes at the end. So we got that. And let's go ahead and put the triangles in for the ears. And let's go ahead and put in a kind of rectangle for the torso and body. Kind of bows out just a little bit at the bottom. Almost looks like a salt shaker with ears. All right. So what we've started off with here is line and shape, which are 2 of the elements of art. Now, you make a line and you close it, and that makes a shape. So we've got 2 triangles, oval, square. And then I'm going to start blocking in some of the other shapes that they're not really geometric shapes. They're more what we call organic shapes. Like think of a pear or a piece of fruit. That's a shape, that's an organic shape. Think of a square, a rectangle, triangle. Those are geometric shapes. So let's put in Grogu's collar. And the collar kind of comes out over here. Then you have almost triangles for the sleeves over here. Got a circle for the hand coming out here. And I'm not even going to mess with the hands yet. So right now, you can see I just have this very light layout with just line and shape. And that's how I like to start my drawings off, to give myself kind of a roadmap so that I have the basic proportion down accurately. And I see it time and time again. Students, they start off drawing, they start at the top of the head and they hold their pencil like this, and then they do the line and they put all the detail on the head, and then they get down to the body and they're like, oh, I made the head too big. And then you gotta have this really tiny body. So that's why I always lightly sketch everything out first, and I use just line and shape for that. Okay, and now let's go ahead. Just as we divided the page in half, we wanna make sure that we have everything on the face in the right location. So I'm gonna put a line that goes right across the middle here. So I'm gonna divide the face into 4 equal quadrants, okay? And when I look at Grogu's face, I realize that the majority of the eyes rest in the bottom quadrant. There's some come up here, they're mostly down here, and if I had to guess what shape the eyes were, they're clearly like an almond shape or an oval, but primarily, those are hard to draw. So what I wanna do is I wanna start with a circle, and I'm just gonna put a circle in for both eyes, and I'm gonna lightly sketch it. Once again, the majority of the eye is below the line. And you really want to try your hardest to make the eyes the exact same size and shape. So we're going to put a lot of time into the eyes. So you see, I just made a bunch of sketches. I was just lightly dragging my pencil across every time that I drew that. Okay. And I'm still not even going to worry about detail yet, because I want to make sure that everything's in the right place before I do that. So now I'm going to add in where I think the nose goes, which is below this middle line. And he's got this really cute, adorable little nose. So I'm just gonna put a little marker for the nose. All right. And we can just do kind of looks like he's got a sad face, but it's just, he's got these chubby, cute little cheeks. And so we're just gonna draw a line that kind of comes up and then dips down and then goes back. So once again, these are just place markers, and we're gonna come back and add detail once we have everything in the right place. Okay, so now I can look at the rest of the body and see what I'm missing and see what needs to be changed. So I need to put in a shape for the finger, and the finger kind of pops out over here on this side. It's just an organic shape. You can see another little finger that pops out here. And he's got this weird little 3-fingered hand over here. So there's this little thumb. One finger pops up. And I'm still not adding detail to the fingers. If you notice, I didn't really put in any of the fingernails. I just want to get everything in the right place. And I'm going to leave out the stand that he was on, because I want to just make it look like he's standing on his own. Okay, and another thing that's really standing out to me is I put these place markers. The ears are not really triangles. They kind of generally have that shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of round these out a little bit, and then they have a curve to them. So they come in and then they taper down. And they come in at the bottom of the cheek there. And so now that I know the placement is correct on these, I can start to draw like a little bit darker. So you see, I'm gonna start making slightly darker marks on the page. Once again, rounded at the tip, and then it kind of bows out a little bit. Comes down. And then I messed up here. That curve right there is bothering me, so I'm gonna go ahead and revisit that real quick. It's a little higher, there we go. All right. Now we can go back, because once again, the eyes are not actually round, they're oval. So let's add little corners to them. So this one is a rounded corner. And then over here, it's a little more pointed. And it almost comes down and points right there, kind of by the nose. So I'm just gonna add those little details, and then I'm gonna fill the nose in. And then the eyes are gonna be probably what we spend the most amount of time on, because it's kind of They're big. It's the window to the soul. You see a lot of the expression there. All right, so now I know they're in the right place. I'm going to go ahead and darken these up and fill it. Okay, and what I like to do is I like to do a little spin check to see, because every time you look at it from a different angle, you can see if they're slightly off. So this one already looks like it's a little bit bigger than the other eye, so I might make some slight adjustments on that real quick. But I think I could maybe just possibly enlarge this one and we'll do the same thing. So I'm just going to outline this one a little bit darker. And that should take care of it. Okay. All right, so now we have the general kind of outline of our character. Everything feels like it's in the right place. So now I'm just going to go in and start kind of darken it up so that I could see it a little bit better. And then I can move on from there. So let's do the head. Got these puffy cheeks that pop out at the bottom. And he kind of gets tucked in behind his collar, so you don't see the bottom of the chin. It's hiding back there. And the head kind of comes up to more of a point than the bottom does. So raise that up a little bit. There is a chin, it's just kind of right there, but you can't see the back of his neck. The collar is covering it. And once again, I'm only darkening things up because I like the positioning of everything. It looks, I'm looking back and forth to the photo, it looks kind of accurate. I would not be doing this if I had doubts as to the position of things or if the sizes were off. Let's get the collars for the sleeves. They're kind of poofy. And this is still, I'm not really even in the detail phase yet. I'm just kind of highlighting things, I guess is what you could say, just so it stands out more. And the outfit obviously was not a real rectangle. It does have folds to it. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add those kind of flowy lines to the outfit. And the bottom's kind of uneven. It's not a straight line. And you have this fuzzy edge. It comes down. Okay. So right now we've just done everything that you've seen here using just line and shape. And that's just about how you would start any drawing using line and shape. Now everybody has a different process. I remember being in middle school and being like, why am I drawing things that I'm gonna erase? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like you're doing twice the effort. But by doing that, by having that underdrawing with really light line and really light shapes, it helps you put everything on the page in the right location, in the right proportion. And in the end, you're just gonna have a better product. It's just gonna look a lot better. Now, what's wrong with this though? It looks insanely flat. It has no depth or form or space to it yet. So how do we add that in there? So we have line and shape. What we need to do, you call it shading. In the art world, they call it value. So we are gonna add value, and I'm gonna start with the eyes. So the value of something in a piece of artwork is how light or dark it is. So right now, they're completely flat. So let's shade them in. But if we notice, the eyes do have a highlight in the top right corner. So I'm gonna leave a blank spot that's kind of just an organic shape. And I'm not gonna shade that in because that'll save us time, or you could go back over it with your eraser, but that's going to let us know that light is hitting it right there. And that's what value does. It mimics the way that light hits an object. And we're going to do this with cross-hatching. So I'm just going to shade in one direction. So the grain of my pencil, it's all going up and down. And I've watched other YouTube channels where they will put a ton of detail and they actually have the pupil and the iris, and you can totally do that if you want. I just, for the sake of this being an introductory assignment, I don't want to go too crazy on the detail, and that's why I like the Funko Pop characters, is they reduce everything to this simplistic design, and you can still get a lot of good practice in this way without, killing yourself on the minute detail. So we just shaded them in one direction, and for it to be cross-hatching, we have to cross in the other direction. So I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to darken it up really by crossing over it by shading in the exact opposite direction. And so it adds a dark layer on top of it, and it fills in some of the gaps that I might have missed, even though I was pretty diligent on how tight I was making the lines, but you can already see it's getting darker. It's almost a full shade darker now. The same thing on this side. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to check against the original. I'm going to go back and look and see if I've matched what it looks like. Okay, it's pretty close, but I can already see looking back that the look on that one, it has a little bit of a reflection in the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase a little bit of the bottom section. It looks like light's popping up off the ground and hitting there as well. I'm going to erase a little bit around this section of the eyes. And then I'm going to do something that you're never supposed to do in art class. I'm going to use my finger to blend. Now, you're supposed to use a blending tool, but this just works in a pinch, and blending tools can be hard to come by. So just going to kind of soften this grain up, because right now it looks like a burlap sack the way that I had it shaded. And then I can touch up this again with my eraser and bring that white back out so it looks a little more vibrant, because it's the contrast that makes it pop and make it look a little more three-dimensional. All right, there we go. So by doing that, by adding the value, we've given form to the eyes. That's another one of the elements of art, form. Now, form makes it look, it's the three-dimensionality. So these eyes went from looking 2D, and now they look like they're three-dimensional. They look like they're reflecting light. There's a curvature to them. And that's what we're going to end up doing to the whole thing. We want to add highlights and shadows all over the design so that it looks a little more realistic, like it's a three-dimensional object rather than a two-dimensional object. So I'm going to do that. The ears have a lot of shadows. The outfit has a lot of shadows. So where should we start? Let's start on the ears, because we never really quite finished those to begin with. So let's put the top of the ear line in, the earlobe. This comes down. Same thing on this side. And this is a softer, this is a lighter line at the bottom that kind of fades into goes from pink to green. So I'm not going to put that one in quite as dark. And I'm going to add, there's a little line that kind of cuts out here. And then I'm going to add some shading underneath the bottom of the arm, because the light's coming in from the top and we want to mimic that. So I'm going to use the side of my pencil to do that, because it's not a ton of shading. It's not as dark as the eyes, the whole thing. Just kind of want to just accent it a little bit. Same thing on this side. And since we're cheating on this drawing, let's go ahead. Use your finger to blend that in. And the reason why you're not really supposed to use your finger is because if you do it too much, it creates, like, you have oils on the tips of your finger and it creates a barrier in between the graphite on the page and the paper, and it like kind of seals it in, so you won't be able to go over or erase that area. Kind of like it's almost acts like a glue. So you don't want to rely on that 100%, but it's good in a pinch, like I said. There's definitely shading inside the jacket here because this is where the most light's revealed. So I can go kind of dark right there. A little bit on this side, not quite as dark over here. So the head's casting a shadow here. So by adding that value, it's making that look three-dimensional. I'm going to hit the folds of the jacket, add a little shading there. Ooh, we forgot to put this flap in the front. There's a fold that comes down right here. Fold back here. This whole side is really shaded in because I think the light's coming down from the top left through the right, so there's more shadow over here on this side of the jacket. And then there's shadow definitely underneath them. And there's a lot of shadow underneath the collar. So once again, the light's coming from up above. All right, so it's starting to look a little more realistic, a little more three-dimensional. We're not going to put all the detail in because it takes forever. As an artist, you have to make a decision what you want to leave in, what you want to leave out. Because if you were to include all the detail in every photo, it almost wouldn't fit on the page. It would just be a little intense. But one thing that we do want to go over here is texture, and this is another one of the elements of art, is we want to make the collars on the outfit look like they're soft and poofy. We want to give it an implied sense of texture. I mean, when you rub your finger over it, it's going to feel like paper and graphite, and your finger is going to get dark smudges on it. So it's not really going to feel poofy, but it's going to look like it feels poofy. And so we have to do that by making some marks on it and kind of like the way you would think of drawing curly hair. So we're going to round the edges out on it. And so now I'm finally hitting the detail. So you can see I'm really holding my pencil down towards the tip. And I'm going to add these little kind of almost like popcorn marks you would think about. And so by doing this, once again, it looks like the jacket has texture. So I'm going to make these outlines, got to have a little kind of, crumple to it. What I'm really doing is I'm just making squiggly lines. Ooh, this section's really shaded in right here. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing now and I'm gonna do these ones a little bit bigger on this section because the collar's a little bit bigger. And I'm kind of rushing through these. You could take your time and really kind of shade these in rather than draw them as squiggly lines. It comes down to your artistic preference and what you think looks best. There's really no one right way to make a piece of artwork. It really comes down to personal taste and style. So we're just giving it, once again, the implied texture there. Okay, and we're getting close to being finished on this. Like now I think what's missing is I just got to go back over the things that I like, darken them up a little bit, because a successful drawing goes through the whole range of value tones. You're going to have really dark darks and really light lights. So this is still somewhat in the middle tone, so I could darken those eyes up. I could darken everything on the head up, the outline. We could add in, and we're going to need to add in some of the wrinkles on the forehead. Before we do that, though, let's cover another element, so space. So there's two ways to talk about space generally. The negative space would be all of this white space around it, because if you were to cut that away, or take away as negative, you'd be left with the positive space of the character. So that's one way to talk about it. Another way to think about space is it just looks like the character is floating right now, almost like the character is in outer space. So we want to ground the character and make it appear as if they're standing in the real world. And you guys have done this a million times, I'm sure. The easiest way to do that is to draw a horizon line in the background. It's really that simple. And just by doing that, it looks like there's a wall behind them, or that sky, and this is the ground. And then another way to ground the character, once again, is to mimic light. So let's go ahead and hit this shadow underneath them a little bit more, because now we actually have ground that the character is standing on. And let's put the shadow of the ears too. Let's have those stick out. They're not going to be, the shadow of the ears is not going to be as dark as the shadow underneath the character, because there's going to be more light that hits it. And I'm just holding my pencil off to the side. I'm using the edge of it, just making these soft lines. And am I going to cheat? Yes, I am. Totally going to cheat. Blur those in a little bit. All right. What's the final step? So now, I mean, if I were to put this up close, you could see that I have really, the lines are not cleaned up. I could definitely go back over this. You might even want to hit it up with pen and go over it, but let's revisit the face real quick. Darken the mouth up so that that line stands out more. There's a bottom lip there that we left out, and put a darker shape around the nose. So now we really like everything. And then there's these little kind of ridges that come up. Almost has eyebrows, but it's just kind of the folds of the skin that go around the eye. And you want to be careful when you do this, because if you throw this off, it'll change the expression of the character. And it'll make the character possibly look angry or sad, depending on how you have the angle of that. And I know you've experienced that in a drawing before. Now I'm putting in these brow lines. These are just nice little extra details that just really bring the character to life. There's even one all the way at the top. And there's a lot of shading on the bottom of this section, because the face kind of and right now, the way that I'm drawing it, it makes it look like I'm giving him a beard almost. Oh, he's got like a goatee. It's so funny. So I am gonna smooth this out with my finger. I'm gonna go over it, I'm gonna cross it up too, so that it looks more like a shading rather than beard. So this is cross hatching once again. Now I'm gonna go in and blend it in. I want to get rid of some of this right here, because it looks like it's a little too aggressive. Pull some of that back. All right, let's just go ahead and sharpen up some of the outlines. And the outline that goes all around the object is called the contour line. And we've gone over 6 elements of art, and I wonder if you guys can guess what's the one that we're missing that we have not included, that you're like, what is it? Just about every piece of artwork has it. That's right, color. That's the final step. Now, I am not going to be coloring this, because I want to leave that up to you. If you want to make it look realistic, then you would copy the color scheme that's in the photo. But if you want to make it your own creation, you want to change it, you want to abstract it, then I would say go crazy, go wild with the color. You know, turn them purple, make them bright red. see what, you know, do whatever you want to do. You're the artist. All right. So let's do a quick review. We started out with line and shape to lay it out. When we started to shade, we added value, and by doing that, that gave it form and texture. And the texture is what it looks like it's going to feel like. We added this line in the background to give it space to make it look like it was actually in some location, and we left out color. So just in doing this, we've hit up 6 out of the 7 elements of art. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And look for the next assignment, which we're going to be going over contour lines and cross contour lines. Peace out, guys.